For the specs, yeah, when I get a lot of headaches, I have to wear blue light glasses when I stare at the computer screen too much. This is something that I started to develop. I actually do wear glasses. I need a new prescription, but these are my blue light glasses. Because when I stare at the computer screen too long, I get migraines. It was something that I really developed in the pandemic. So,
Wow.
yeah.
Okay, here we are.
All righty.
We're live on Facebook as well.
We are live on Facebook as well, everybody.
And we have
Okay.
an Instagram. Okay, awesome.
So, for those of you who just joined us, today is episode number 93, 7 away from 100 episodes. Yeah.
I know.
So we will be discussing double drapery rods. And if you are new to Window Treatment Friday Live, I absolutely love hardware. So this is one of the topics that I love to talk about.
Perfect. And let me just introduce ourselves in case you guys are new to our episodes here and our whole broadcast. We have been doing it for almost 2 years now, believe it or not. We started during the pandemic, and who would have thunk that we would stick with it for 2 years? My name is Vita. I am the owner of Vitalia Inc. Window Treatments. We're located in the Philadelphia area, and we are the drapery, custom drapery workroom, and a window treatment specialist to the trade. Hello from Ireland. Dang, girl or guy, I can't tell. My goodness. Oh, Trish.
Yeah.
Hey, Trish.
Hi, Trish. Welcome. And for those of you who don't know me, I'm Kimberly. I'm one of the partners at Window Works. We are located in Livingston, New Jersey. We are a window treatment and awning retailer. We service interior designers, architects, landscape architects, and also the retail client.
Awesome. So without further ado, let's talk about double drapery rods.
Okay, so this first project was one that we did for Ellie Moreau's Designs. Ellie loves doing a double rod setup in the primary bedrooms. So this was one that we did for hashtag Casa Aquasanta. So
from Canada.
Oh my
Canada.
God, international.
Canada, I know, my goodness. Between me being from Ukraine, you being originally from Portugal, we got Canada, we got Ireland. We have like a whole United Nations happening this morning.
Hello, everyone, and welcome.
And our American friends will love you too.
So this is a project that we did for Ellie Moreau's Design, so or EMD for short. So for EMD, they love doing the double rod setup. This was for hashtag Casa Aquasanta. So if you go onto Ellie's Instagram or on her website, you're going to see not only these beautiful double drapery rods, but also the amazing interiors that she designed, and that her husband also built the home. So it's a really cool, unique dynamic where they have like, you know, her husband builds the homes and she designs the homes. So it's a really cool team that they have going on there in Westfield. So this was what we did for the primary bedroom. And what we have here is a double decorative traversing rod system. So, and they opted to go with baton draw instead of cord draw. So just like in a hotel, you're able to open and close the drapes very easily with an acrylic baton that hides behind the drapery panels. And the back layer is the sheer layer. So with that, they decided to go with an unlined sheer for a privacy layer. So when the clients want their privacy, they just close the sheer. And the front layer is the blackout layer. So when they want to have the room dark, they just close the front layer. Now, with this to know, it does make the room dark. It's not 100% blackout. So that's another thing that if you go back a couple episodes, we have a whole episode on total blackout, Vegas blackout, all that good stuff. But with this, it does make the room pretty dark. One of the lessons that I had to learn very early on with a double rod setup, and we can kind of get into depth on this when we show you the profile of the brackets, is making sure that you make the front drape where you have it, where it has a deep enough return to go back to the wall. So depending on the distance of where the rod sits, and then the drape returns back to the wall, you can't just do like a standard 3.5, 4.5 inch return, because it's not going to cover the sheer and it's not going to be so pretty. And you're going to see this ugly profile on the side. So a lot of times Billy will even like a 10-inch return, depending on like the molding setup and everything else. And this way we don't have to see the side and all the guts and things that are happening on the sides.
So let's go to some of the profiles of the brackets. So now that
Yeah.
you've seen kind of the visual of what we were talking about, and a good way to think about is exactly what Kim said. Think of when you are in a hotel, you have double draperies. Think of when you were maybe on a cruise ship, you usually have double draperies. So anywhere in any kind of like commercial hospitality type
Mhm.
situation, you usually have double draperies. Hey, Sue, how are
Hey,
you?
Sue.
So now that you've seen the picture, we want to show you a couple of technical brackets here, just to kind of give you an idea of how decorative hardware in terms of double rod is set up. So you can see this is a double bracket. This is a profile of a double bracket. You see that there's a closer uh, rod
Rod.
to the base, and then there's a further rod to the base. And what Kim is talking about is really important. I actually didn't think of it. I thought you were going to say something else. But
Mhm.
this is another really good lesson that the outer drape, the one that is furthest from the base,
Very
the
exactly.
return, which is that flap and flap of the fabric, needs to go back to the wall,
This one
touch
here.
it in sort of perpendicular way and actually reach the wall. And if you make it as a single return, which would be that little indentation in the rod showing in this bracket that's closest to the base, it just won't reach the wall if you make both of the drapes with the same return. So,
So this particular bracket here, what you're seeing is this is for a style of a rod with rings. So in the typical rod with rings, the bracket cups the rod and holds it this way. So in the example that I showed before, that was a decorative traversing rod. So that is that style bracket where it hooks on from the top. So the rod sits on top. So if you go back to the first one, that's a rod with rings. Now when you have, depending on your expanse, again, this is like a whole nother topic of depending on how wide of a rod that you're using, you may have to have multiple brackets, which if your front panels are stationary but your back panels are the ones that are actually traversing, you might need to go with C-rings to get it over the brackets.
so this is an example of a double wall bracket for the situation where you have traverse rods. So
Mhm.
that's what Kim was alluding to earlier. Instead of cupping the
It hooks.
the rod, how do I do it so that you can see me like that?
Yeah. Instead of cupping it this way, it hooks on this way.
It
And
hooks on
anyone
every
joining us now is probably like, what are they doing?
what are they doing exactly?
Yeah. So that's a really cool, that's a different thing. So this is the type of thing that designers, homeowners, if you're watching, these are the kind of details that you don't really have to worry about. Your window treatment specialist should be able to guide you on the best drapery hardware and what type of brackets and what kind of systems that you're using depending on the style of drapery and what you're looking to achieve.
And if you are trying to really educate yourself on window treatment so that you can do it yourself, these are the types of things and the tips that we're giving you so that you know the types of things to
Mhm.
watch out for.
Exactly.
So here is another project that we did here at Vitalia Inc. This is an example of a also double rod situation. These were rings. So unlike Kim's first example where it was all traversing, this is an example of that cupped bracket with rings. The shears were on rings and the outer drape was on rings as well. The one thing that I wanted to talk about and a very important tip to give you. So number one was make sure that the outer drape return is long enough. Tip number two is that the distance between the first layer and the second layer is big enough, substantial enough for the two layers of the drape to clear each other. Because if any of you stayed in the hotel or the cruise ship situation or anywhere where you've had to operate it and you're trying to operate the outer drape, and as you're doing it, as you're moving it back and forth, you're actually taking the shear with you. Nobody likes that. It's annoying. You have to then fiddle with it. So the point is that if they are far enough apart, am I saying this? Am I doing this?
Mhm.
Then
This way.
each layer can operate independently and not have to necessarily touch or certainly not get in the way of each other. So definitely watch out for that.
Nicely done.
And this is the same. This was with the drapes open, and this was with the drapes closed. Recent project we did. This was a project that we did for Hank Design, which is a design firm located in the Philadelphia area. We've been doing quite a lot of work for them lately. Very talented team. And here is an example actually of a bracket. You can see several situations, it's several profiles here. So at the
Mhm.
top, you're seeing the bracket itself. On the right here, you are seeing how the double rod looks. And then here in the left-hand side corner, you are seeing the rendering of the bracket.
Mhm.
And what this is actually is where the outer layer of the drape is hung on rings, and the inner layer of the drape does not have rings and is actually a traverse rod. And it happens quite a bit.
Mhm.
It often that a designer or a customer does not want to have too many rings. So the rings on the outer layer, the rings on the inner layer, which is the project that I just showed you. Some people don't like that. Some people don't like rings at all, actually, and
Mhm.
certainly not as many as like 2 layers of rings. So to eliminate all of the little lines that rings create, there's an option for you where you have rings on the outer layer of the rod, and then the back layer, which is usually a shear. That's what usually happens, shear in the overdrape. The shear is just traversing back and forth on the traverse rod. But instead of it being just a regular track, like a Kirsch track or any other maybe less attractive, more utilitarian track, this option gives you a decorative solution. This actually comes from United Supply in their Select Metals collection.
So Vita, I have a question. I'm gonna act like an audience member real quick. So with this, with the rings, are these full rings? Are they C rings? Is it because I know like Brimar has like a half a ring that
Hmm.
clips on to the back, so it's like a track with a ring, so it moves very easily. And so is this when you use this application, is it this the type of thing that you could only use 3 brackets? Or if you have like, an 11-foot run where you need at least 4 brackets for a situation like that,
Hmm.
do these rings, can they bypass the bracket very easily?
Yeah, I'm reading what they have to say there. This particular one, the way I'm seeing it, these are full rings.
Mm-hmm.
So to your point, this would be a situation where at the most you can have 3 brackets.
Right.
So it would be the 2 outer brackets and the
And
center
then center
bracket.
bracket.
And what Kim is referring to is if you have more than 3 brackets, if you have a bracket intermittently between the center and the side, you have to make sure that the rings clear the bracket. And usually in either this situation where the bracket is at the top, or if it's cupping it, the full ring cannot clear it. It will get
Right.
stuck on the bracket. So this one I think is for shorter expanses. I know that there is definitely a solution where you can have C rings so that
Yeah.
it clears the bracket.
Yeah. So those
Good
are just
question.
a couple of tips and things to kind of keep in mind.
Mhm.
Okay, and again, another project by Miss Ellie. So this, if you are not familiar with Ellie Morose, this is a project called Shadow Lawn. So if you go to her website and click Shadow Lawn, you'll be able to see this. This is the primary bedroom. And here what we did was wall-to-wall double traversing drapes and shears. Now, in this particular primary bedroom, they have these gorgeous doors that slide out to this really gorgeous patio area right off of the primary bedroom, dream bedroom. Like I said, Ellie and Mike really design such really great homes. So for this, the shear was again unlined and it was again done with a baton draw. You can do cord draw. Double traversing rods like this or single traversing. The only thing is, depending on the vendor, they don't always splice the rod depending on the size. So a couple years ago, I want to say maybe about 8 or 9 years ago, we were doing a double decorative traversing rod like this, 10 feet wide, maybe even 11, and they would not splice it. So it had to come freight truck. And
Hmm.
the only way Billy and Carlos could get it into this client's condo was from the ground hoisted up through the balcony on a ladder. It was quite a gong
Oh my
show.
God.
And we had two sets like this. We did this in the living room
Wow.
and then again in the kitchen family room area. So they,
And is this something you planned for? You knew that that was going to happen, or
yeah,
was
we
it
had
like,
no
oh,
choice.
oh,
We had no choice. Like we were doing, I did, you know me, when it comes to hardware, if I can find a new way to do
yeah.
something. So, but yeah, so now Vesta will splice a corded rod. So I found
Mhm.
that out. Oh, not Vesta, I'm sorry, Forest Drapery Hardware will do a splice corded rod. So
And
that
tell our listeners, what does it mean to splice a rod?
so what it means to splice a rod, so generally any rod that's 96 inches or smaller or shorter will go in a box and can be shipped regular UPS, FedEx, DHL, whichever shipping provider the vendor provides. Now, if you go over that 96, what happens is it needs to come via freight because the box is too big to ship standard. So even if it's like 9 feet, you have to ship it freight. So there are often times that we'll go for that. Now that means just a longer lead time in shipping because it could take. I had rods that took 12 days to get from Arizona to New Jersey. It was a fun tracking that package because it was an outdoor rod system that was over 240 inches wide. So
Wow.
even when they spliced it in half, they still had to ship it freight. So what that means to splice a rod is, so if we have a system like this, corded system, if you wanted to say have 12 feet, but you can't ship, you don't want to ship 12 feet because trying to maneuver a 12-foot rod upstairs in someone's home is not very easy. What
It's long.
splicing means, yeah, it's long, it's big. What splicing means is you just simply, the rod comes cut in half, and then there is a connection piece that gets attached in the center.
Mhm.
So this way, the rod can be joined together. So there's a joining system. It works really well when it's split draw because the panels do meet in the middle. Sometimes certain rods, if they're one-way draw, they don't always necessarily recommend splicing them because the drape can get caught, the carriers can get caught on the splice. Sometimes Billy and I are like, we'll figure it out. We have
Yeah.
no
Well, I mean, you have
choice.
to do what you have
Yeah,
to do.
there's like, I can't bring a rod that's
How do you get around that little cuff that goes on the top if people say your designer client says I don't like it?
we don't do the cuff. We put the splice where we know we're gonna put a bracket. So Billy, like,
So
we'll split
you put a bracket in the center and you cover
the
the seam.
splice. Yep. So
What if the bracket is top mounted bracket and you can see the seam from the bottom?
it's something that we let
Top
them
to
know.
piece.
Yeah, it's just it is what it
It's a
is kind
fact
of
of
thing.
life.
Yeah,
Hmm.
it's just, the same way that there's seams and drapes,
Yep.
you're going to have a seam in the rod. And then oftentimes it's so close together that you really have to be looking for it.
Mm.
Um, we do like to put the bracket right where the splice is. I've had times where, again, with supply chain, they don't have 8-foot rods in stock. So we have to order a 6 and a 4 and
Mm-hmm.
figure it out. These are all
Figure it
different
out.
things, but wherever there's a splice, when we're doing it, we always put a bracket.
Yeah. Nice. Ah, I'm like, that's me.
Quick
Um,
commercial break.
a quick commercial break, you guys. Before we go on to show you a couple of more images, I just wanted to make sure that you were aware of a new podcast that Luann Nigara has launched. It is called Window Treatments for Profit. She is a amazing woman who has so much energy because doing a well-designed business podcast with over 700 episodes was not enough. She recognized that there was a need for a podcast dedicated specifically to window treatment professionals, and voila, Window Treatment for Profits is launched. And I am very lucky and honored and privileged to have a recurring guest show on her podcast. Every Thursday, I come to you all queued up with a 10-minute episode that we call Vita's Tip in 10. And during that episode, I take apart one little but powerful and mighty nuance of a window treatment business. Usually on the business side, not so much on the creative side, not so much on the window treatment product knowledge side, but on the business side. and I give you my advice. I give you an example of either from my business or from my clients' businesses, or anonymous, of course, or just the different experiences that I can share with you so that you can be that much more educated and inspired and on with your day. So please join us for Luann's episode that drops every Monday,
Monday. Hmm.
Madeline McCrae's episode that drops every Wednesday, and mine, Vita Stip and 10, that drops every Thursday. So go on whatever platform you listen to your podcasts on and type in Window Treatments for Profit, subscribe, and you will have it automatically downloaded to your app. I can't wait for you to listen.
They are excellent. I listen to them. So
Thank you.
great job, Vita. Congratulations.
Ah, well, that's me again. So here's another example of a double rod. I can't say there's anything particularly special about this. Just another way, another situation, another space to show you that it's not, I don't know if it's super often that we use double rods, but when we do, when the situation presents, this is just another way to show you how it's done. This is a shear in the back, stationary drapes in the front, resin hardware in the front, and a track, a concealed, or a track that we wanted to conceal with the shear in the back.
So real quick before you move on to the next slide, this is actually how we had to do it. This is old school style of doing a decorative rod in the front and then a non-decorative track in the back. That's how we did it for years before double rod systems came out. At least when I first started in the industry about 14 years ago, this is how we were doing double rod systems. And then the more I started learning about different drapery hardware vendors that were out there, and really started to be like, oh, well, this vendor has this, or this vendor came out with this bracket. So now we have the ability to do, this, that, and the other thing. But this is what Billy was putting up, for years.
Right. So this is individual. There's a
Yeah.
track that gets attached to the wall, and then there's a double bracket for the decorative part that gets attached to the wall. So
Yeah.
they're independent of each other.
So when you're doing it this way, the trick here is to make sure that the drapes and the shears are almost line up, where the other one, it almost sets it up where the drape and the shears are almost directly behind each other, depending on your bracket and the whole thing. If you're using rod, traversing rod behind with ring, that's a whole nother, deduction. But for something like this, it's literally floating. So you had to make sure that your deductions, before you even put your drapes into production, you had your drapery lengths at the correct deduction, because there really is no moving it around too much here.
Yep. All right. This is
Okay.
a fun one.
So this here is something that, full disclosure, this is not a project that Vita or myself have done, but this is something that we have done a few times at WindowWorks. And this is a double rod system that is hidden into the ceiling. So what happens here in this situation, I'm actually doing something like this currently right now for House of Funk. Well, it's going to just be a single layer, but we've done single and we've done double. So in a situation like this, the designer or the client does not want to see the drapery hardware. And they don't want to build any type of pocket or any type of like fascia board that goes across. They want it so that it feels like the window treatment is floating from the ceiling. So this whole process has to start in the construction process. So there's a lot of conversations that have to be had, because what you don't see here is you're just seeing these two tracks that are going into the ceiling, or two channels that are being cut out of the ceiling. What you're not realizing is the support system that has to be built up and cut into the ceiling for this to happen. So oftentimes when we do this on projects, it's a lot of conversations with the contractor, the GC, who's ever doing the ceiling, who's ever doing the sheetrocking. It's like the whole team has to get together to figure out how to make this happen. And then what we will do is we will give them a good size piece of the hardware, so that this way they know exactly what to cut out the channel in order to make room for the channel. We don't have them install it. because Billy likes to install it. He likes the control in that way, because if they use the wrong screws, and if, especially in something like this, there's a specific screw that he likes to use so that the carriers don't get caught on the screws. So
Mm,
we give them a piece of the hardware so they know exactly what to cut it out. And it's not something that's super, it's tight. I can't even speak to all the different details, because honestly, I'm very, very fortunate that I have Billy, where I'm just like, yeah, this is above my pay grade. You're going to need to talk to Billy on certain things, because he doesn't want it where it's the exact size of the track, because then it doesn't give the track room to breathe, or it doesn't give us, enough space for us to just put it in there. So he always likes to to have a little bit of wiggle room in there. So he goes
So
over.
let me just make sure. So when I understand, the builder builds before they start closing the ceiling, Billy comes in and installs the rods, and then the builder then drywalls all around it.
No, so we don't even install the rods till we install the drapes. So we just give them a piece, and they create the channel for us. And then we go
Ah,
once everything is done, because then you run the risk of paint getting in the tracks. You run the risk of, well, whatever construction nonsense happens in there. So he likes it so that the channel is made, the channel is finished, and then
mhm.
we go in there the day of install, put the tracks up ourselves. And then in the process, sometimes we do walkthroughs to make sure things are fitting and things like that. But the tracks actually do not get installed until we do it.
See, that's a really interesting tip because we actually have never done these rods, but
Mm-hmm.
we do have a project right now where these rods are specified all over the house.
Mm-hmm.
And we were going to have them shipped directly to the builder, who happens to be super nice and great, and they were going to install them for us. But now, listening to you about all the potential issues with either the paint getting on it, or them not giving it enough breathing room, or using the wrong screws so the wheels, the little carriers don't run through smoothly, I am wondering whether we should do what you do.
Yeah, no, it's just there's potential room for error, especially if it's like a splice rod. They might not necessarily know how to put it together, and if it's not joined correctly and it's just ever so slightly off, then it's not
Mhm.
going to move. Now it's Billy's time, or your installer's time, taking down the rod,
Yeah,
fixing the rod, trying to see what happened. And for those of you who aren't really familiar, they're just like they're pieces, they're U-shaped pieces of metal.
yeah.
So like
So
they're
they
very.
just like they get like they get in there into the
Mhm.
channel that they create, and then it gets drilled inside the channel.
Yeah, so there's a specific track that Billy likes to use for this type of application, because it's one that it's a Kirsch Arca track that already comes pre-drilled, so this way he can get his screws right in there, has a flat top. I can share with you the rod. Have you ordered the rods yet?
We haven't, but we've specified Vesta rods for this. I don't think I realized that Architract has ceiling recessed rods.
Oh yeah, that's what we use for all of our recess
Yeah,
stuff.
actually, if you don't mind, see you guys, this is what happens, like first of all, we don't script these shows. Second of all,
No,
we
we
learn
don't,
from
not
each
at all.
other all the time. So welcome to a live show. Oh, come back.
Hold on. Sorry about that. Ooh, my phone, the whole thing just fell. There we go.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm in a new setup here in my living room, because I just
It
want
looks
to
very
have,
pretty with the
you
little
know,
tree, the drape. You look very,
eventually I'll get my wallpaper up, look, I'm shoemaker's child, but I have drapes. So that's like half of the battle.
there you go.
Um,
So yeah,
so
if you have a chance, I would love to have that item number for the Kirsch rod.
sure. Sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's probably I mean, Vesta does have a similar track that I have used.
Mm-hmm.
I think I know which track you're talking. They're just their small 3/4 profile inch
Yep.
track. Is that the one that you're
Mhm.
talking about?
Yep, yep,
Yeah.
with like the flange. It's a
Yeah.
U-shaped track with the flange that
Yeah.
that straddles the
But
ceiling
yeah.
essentially.
So there's that one, but then there's one that's completely flat, so it can get it up there even tighter. But if the pocket's already built,
Hmm.
that's where, like, anytime, like, I'm in the process of ordering a decent sized chunk for the House of Funk project that I was telling you about.
Hmm.
Um, that I have to order a decent sized track so that they have a template
And when you
essentially.
say decent size, like 2 feet, 3 feet, ten
Like,
feet,
no, not like, about like 3 or 4 feet, so that
three or
this
four
way
feet.
they
Yeah.
can see, like, okay, this is what we have to make it.
Yep.
Because when you send it, there was another project that we did down south, um, that we were just doing stationary panels into a ceiling, like a drop ceiling,
Hmm.
and we each rod was either going to be 36 inches or 24 inches.
Mm-hmm.
So we happen to have that exact two-piece sizes in stock at Window Works when we were packing to leave to go down and measure.
Mm-hmm.
So we were just like, here are your piece sizes, cut, the channels to this. And the contractor was so grateful. He was like, wow, these are the exact sizes that we need. I'm like,
Yeah.
great. Yeah, because
Yeah.
they're stationary panels. So we're doing baby rods. So they cut the perfect channels. Billy had the whole in-depth conversation with them and what type of supports he needed at the top and the ceiling
Yep.
in order for it to hold the weight. There were stationary panels. So in that case, it wasn't a lot of weight.
And does Billy usually specify blocking all up at the top so that
yeah,
he can drill into a block?
yeah, he tells them that he needs something, and then they have their contractor talk, and I just go, yep, again above my pay grade. This is why very, very, very lucky installers, like we said
Very
last
lucky.
week. Having a good installer be on your team is total. It's a big key to the process, because there are times, again, I've been doing this for 14 years. There are times where I'm just like, yeah, I don't know. Like,
Mm-hmm.
that's why I have Billy. Like,
Yeah.
big
Yeah.
secret. Like, I still don't final measure my own shutters. Why?
Mm.
I have Billy to do that. Like,
Well, you're lucky. The rest of us
yeah,
are not that lucky.
no. Yeah,
So
the
for the
rest of us
rest
don't
of you
have.
guys listening and me, we have
Yeah.
to learn it all
Yeah.
and make it our pay grade.
No, that's where I will fully admit that's where I'm totally spoiled, that I do have Billy and Carlos, because a lot of times Carlos is learning from Billy, that it's dinner conversations in my house about like rod setups and what were you trying to do here, and I'm like,
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know, make it work.
No separation from work and personal life.
No, never.
All right, I think we've exhausted the topic of
Yes.
concealed and recessed ceiling tracks for the time being.
Yes.
So I'm sure we'll talk about it again. If you guys have any questions right now or later, please shoot them our way, and we will, of course, answer.
So, alrighty, everyone, that concludes today's episode. But before we let you go, there are a couple of things that we just want to go over. If you are new to window treatments and you're really getting started, please head on over to our website, windowworksnj.com. Luann wrote a free ebook, Architectural Digest Isn't Coming, 10 Things You Need to Know About Custom Window Treatments.
Thanks, Deb. And from Vitalia Inc., you also can get a free gift. It is a curated lookbook filled with inspiration and education. We call it 37 and a half window treatment ideas for you to steal, swipe, and use immediately on your next design project. Please grab yours at vitaliainc.com.
All right, and to keep up with all things Miss Luann, head on over to luannigara.com, where you can listen to the audio version of Window Treatment Friday and also listen to all the other podcasts that she's coming up with. She just started her spring round of Luann University, so which Vita is teaching, of course. So yay, yesterday was your first day of school. So
First day of school, yes. Love teaching my course. We call it Systems-Driven Operations. If you would like to run an organized, scalable, sellable, and profitable window treatment business, I invite you to check out the syllabus. It is on luannuniversity.com. The card is closed for this semester, but you definitely should consider it for next. Just if you're trying to run a well-oiled machine of the back end of your business, this course is a must.
Yeah.
I'm just reading and heading in, but it was almost finished. See you next time. Our episode. Well, thank you for joining us, you guys. If you're new here, join us here every Friday. Kim and I geek out on all things window treatments. We pick a topic, any topic. Today is double rods. Last time was, I think we recapped IWCE. And over the last 2 years, we've done drapery panels, pleats, balances, cornices, arched windows, lift systems, everything and anything that you can think of that is related to window treatments. If you wanted to get a really in-depth education, this is it, because not a whole lot of other things are available if you wanted to be a pro in window treatments.
Exactly. And if you are located in the New Jersey or New York area, or if you are a designer from out of state and have a project in this area and you need help on your next double rod system, please give WindowWorks a call. We would be happy to help you on your next project.
And if you're looking for support in the Philadelphia area or anywhere in the country for that matter, please give us a call as well. We are happy to support you with your window treatments.
Alrighty, everyone. Well, that concludes episode number 93. We hope you join us next week for episode 94. We hope you have a great weekend, and we hope to see you because if it's Friday,
It's WTF Live, Window Treatment Friday Live. Join us here every Friday, guys. Have a great weekend.
bye.